Hey everybody, it's Andy here with Bliss Brick Studios. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today I'm going to cover a little bit about my experiences transporting Lego to conventions. I am about 2 hours away, I'm about 2 weeks away from leaving for Brickworld Chicago, which I'm super pumped about. It'll be my first time at Brickworld, though I have been to other Lego conventions in the past. So this trip is going to be a 10-hour drive from Knoxville, Tennessee, all the way up to Schaumburg, Illinois in the Chicago suburbs. I'm actually from Illinois, so I'm really excited to go to this show, but I want to share some of my experiences moving and transporting Lego and also show you some of the behind the scenes of what I'm doing over the next 2 weeks to make sure I'm ready for this show. And by the way, if you're new here, I'm Andy, and this is Bliss Brick Studios. I'd love it if you would consider subscribing, and of course, hit that bell down below so you never miss another video. I cover everything in Lego from MOCs and parts usage to minifig collecting and set reviews, and I'd love to have you join me on this Lego journey. Now, back to this video. So, like I said, I'm going to Brickworld Chicago 2023 in just over 2 weeks, and I'm really excited to take you all on the journey for me. I have a lot of different content planned for this month, so be sure to stay tuned here. But today I want to talk a little bit about the things I'm doing several weeks in advance to take a MOC that I've actually shown 3 times locally and regionally, 10 hours up the road in my minivan. Of course, when I get to Brickworld, I'm gonna be kind of out of the studio and I won't have access to all these parts. And that's a little scary. I wanna go up and really enjoy the show, talk to a lot of friends, see what everybody else has built, and I don't wanna be there stressing about how my MOC fell apart in the back of the van. So I think what I'm gonna do today is take you into the other room. I just got it out of its containers, and I wanna walk you through some of the key elements of my build, how I've gotten it to be where it's at so far in its creation, and a couple of the proactive things I'm gonna do over the next couple of weeks to make sure that I get up to Illinois safely. So let's head into the other room. All right, gang, so here it is. I'm out here in this extra room in my basement where I typically set this stadium up. And here's a good view of what I'm dealing with. If you're new to the channel, you may not have seen this before, but I've actually displayed this stadium a couple of different times. And you can kind of see it's got a variety of different sections. We've got the kind of primary middle area, which is actually more like a mosaic if you think about it. It's very flat. There's not a lot of stuff coming up in the build. The second area is all of these stands, grandstands that go around the outside, and they're actually very similar, and I'm going to get into those in a little bit. And then the third area is this outfield area with the wall, and you can see I don't have this fully set up, but it also has this build that goes across an angle that requires me to remove some parts. So I'm going to break down a little bit of what I've done to make this a little more modular and how I transport these. Right now I'm using these bins, which I'll walk through in just a minute. And so I'm going to take some of this back into the studio and we'll take a look at what's going on. All right, everybody, so tip number 1 for traveling with your Lego MOCs is definitely build modularly. So if you've been with me for a while and been watching the channel, you can actually dig back through my old videos and you'll know that this baseball stadium project that I took on, it's currently 7 by 7 base plates, so 7 wide and 7 deep, 49 base plates total, but it started actually just as 4 base plates. I started with this home plate area and decided to build a baseball field. Not so much a stadium, but a field. And you can see that this is built on what we call mills plates. I'll show you this side because it's a little more colorful. So if you're not familiar with mills, it stands for Modular Integrated Landscaping System. Very fancy. But basically what it means is we take a base plate and add a brick on the top. A brick is equal to 3 plates. And that allows us to have depth to our build. So in my build, the dugouts, I wanted to be able to be below field level. And so I put these on mills originally because I wanted the players to be able to walk down into the dugout and have it sit a little bit below the bottom of the field. What I didn't realize though was by building like this, it created a modular system that was gonna help me tenfold as I move forward with the build. So the first show I took this to, it was just the baseball stadium without the ring around the edge with all the seats. So everything looked like this. There was almost nothing coming up off the top. And it actually is really more like an art mosaic. Many people are building now where they take a base plate and they make a pattern and copy all kinds of things, or they make a kind of artistic pattern or make someone's face. We call that mosaics in the Lego build hobby. But this is essentially a mosaic of a baseball field, excuse me. If I hold these up, the only thing that's actually coming off the top is this tile for first base and third base. So when I showed up to my very first show with the baseball field, it was all stacked just like this, and I put it in a rolling suitcase. Just popped together and then went back in minutes, literal minutes. It was really slick. So the mill system uses these Technic bricks here where we can put a pin inside the brick I've got. And so they snap together, they're in the same spot on every base plate. So at no point in the baseball stadium do I ever build over the line of the base plate, with the exception of the fence and the kind of wall down first and third base that goes to the outfield. Those had to go on an angle, but they're detachable. So those are some of the first things I take off. And so I build everything on a base plate that can come apart by itself, and having this clean edge makes it modular and makes it much easier for transport. The last thing I'll say about mills is it's just so sturdy. The base plates that Lego makes are really, really floppy, but this sturdiness allows me to be able to pick this up and carry it around and toss it on the table, and it's really, really good for transport. So tip number one, build modularly. That's a little background about mills, and the whole field for the baseball stadium is built that way. Now let's move on to the bleachers, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the infrastructure there. Okay, so now let's take a look at this bleacher or stadium section that is the outer ring around the baseball field proper. So I want to show you a little bit. This one's fragile because it's kind of version 1. Essentially what I did is just stack a lot of 2x4 bricks right here and right here, which then allowed me to just stair step up to get these different sections. So there's one set of bricks here, there's one through the middle, and there's one here on the sides, on the other side. But the problem with this is, let me see if I can show you this. If I take this base plate and bend it, do you see what's happening there on the bottom? Let me see if I can get a good shot there. You see how those just pop right off, and same there. So this is actually the first real mock that I've ever built, and I just kind of kept going. I started with the field and then I kept expanding. But I'm really actually wanting to tear the whole thing down now, and not the whole thing, but this whole outer part, and redo this entire infrastructure. So the simple solution right here is to build across this beam. But I actually saw a great video on David's channel over at Solid Brick Studios. I'll drop a link to it in the description because I really want to support what he's doing over there. I mean, he's been around for a decade or more, but he has this really great video recently where he showed kind of what he calls the exoskeleton, or the interior, where instead of just building up like this, he also builds this way and then front to back. And it's a system of laying basically 2x6 bricks, you know, and then attaching one on top, so you get this interlaced like mesh pattern that would be much, much stronger. So tip number 2, that's a big takeaway I think from today's conversation, is don't skimp on the structure at the beginning if you're gonna go build large. I went to our local Knoxville show, our biggest show of the year, last August of 2022. And I was rebuilding the stadium. As I said, I had torn it down, and I didn't put these Technic bricks in because I was low on them. I had run out of stock and I was in a hurry, and I was like, it's fine, I know how to do that. I'll just go back through at the very end and I'll just reinstall all the Technic bricks. Well, between building it the first time and the second time, those Technic bricks had gone into Mills plates for things like my Lego city that I'm working on and this road plate. And next thing you know, I was out of Technic Bricks and it's the weekend of the show. So I was at the show thinking that these Technic Bricks, I think, were gonna just come out of midair and I was suddenly gonna have hundreds of them that I needed. And so I'm standing over my build, I'm dripping sweat. The venue didn't have the air conditioning on in Tennessee in August, the day before for load-in, and it was miserable. So I had to call my local shop here in town. Big shout out to Pat at Brickhouse Collectibles, one of my closest friends here, and thankfully he had some like bulk Technic in the back. I had my wife at home going through our bulk Technic. Long story short, get your act together at the beginning because it's not gonna end well. You know, I mentioned David at Solid Brick Studios. He's built, you know, probably a half dozen or more really large Star Wars dioramas, and I'm sure he's learned the same lesson through the process, which is, you know, this is just not a great solution. So for the time being, since this show is only in 2 weeks, what I've done, look at this one, you can see how much stronger is this one. There's really not a lot of place to lace it in, so let me see if I can get my face out of here and you guys can see that a little better. From the sidewalk to the back of this wall here, that I really only have the one brick to lace, but you can see on this one I've laced a lot more going from side to side so that the different areas are not, and as I try to sort of bend this, you can see that's holding a lot stronger in there. So that's my second big takeaway from what I've learned over about 3 to 4 years of building a really big MOC like this, which is don't skimp on the structure from the beginning. If you're gonna build large scale dioramas, it's not gonna be cheap, and it's probably best to commit to really getting a great structure at the beginning of the build so that you don't run into problems later and have to back way up and sort of retrace those corners that you cut in the initial stages. All right, gang, so tip number 3 is gonna be label your sections of your large MOCs. Let me show you what I mean by this. Okay, gang, so like I said, this build has 7 base plates in each direction, this way and also this way. And when I look at this build, I'm not gonna be able to put all of those in one bin because those are all the big high ones, parts, or these. I have to put a combination of these flatter parts and the taller parts in the bins to get them to all fit. It currently actually fits in 3 of these tubs. So one of the things I'm gonna do over the next 2 weeks, just to save myself a little stress when I get to Chicago, is I'm gonna label the bottom of these base plates with just a small sticker that says like row 1A, B, like 1A, 1B, 1C, and that will be representative of the grid this way and this way, 7 this way and 7 that way, that the base plates are on. Now, this is a puzzle, and it is possible, actually, if you look at where these are, you can see I can line up those parts, but it takes me a lot more time when I'm at the show to line those up. And then if you look at the outfield pattern, there's an alternating green pattern here that has to stay true. So when I split here, the dark green has to be by a light green. So, and this one with the little brown piece has to go at the corner behind second base. And then this brown pattern can't go over there. It has to go this way. And I end up just spending a lot more time than I need to trying to figure out where to put all the base plates. So before I go to this show, I'm going to label the bottom of all of these so that I have a simple system. I was gonna color code the interior, but so that like it was all different colors, but I have so much sort of, you know, call it whatever you want, just garbage brick or whatever, to use for the infrastructure, that if I did one big color here, it's not like it would be super clear. So I decided I don't think that that's worth the time and the energy. I think I'm just going to label the bottom, and then I'm also going to try to pack them this time around a little bit more carefully to make sure that everything clicks together nicely when we get up there. So tip 3 is definitely label your sections so that you can get things put together quickly and easily. All right, everybody, I hope you're really enjoying this walkthrough of my 49 base plate baseball stadium and how I plan to transport this 10 hours in a van. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. We are on the road to 500 subscribers right now, and we really, really appreciate your support. Thanks so much. Now, let's get to these final tips on how I'm gonna move this thing up to Illinois. All right, so some of my final tips on how to move large Lego builds include taking off all of the little pieces that are likely to break. So I have a couple of pieces I referenced earlier in this video that I have to take off. This is the wall section that connects kind of the outer half of first base all the way out to the wall. And it actually has this tarp that I built that clips into the wall, so it's actually connected to it. It can't be removed without taking the pin out. But I'm gonna take things like this. I've got my foul pole here that sticks up on the end of the line. These are going to snap off in transition. Here is the scoreboard mechanism. It actually goes this way, and there's a video screen that sits in here. So this whole thing comes off nicely and can just pop on at the end. And then you can see I've got bags of like minifigures and the umpires and their gloves and all these little things like flags. You can see right here, we've got some flags that go on the end and a little car that I put. All this stuff is really, really easy to set up on location. If I can snap my fingers and have the whole stadium ready to go, dropping this stuff in is no problem at all. So my final tip I think for today is just keep track of all these little things, get them into some bags, so that when you arrive at the show, you're able to just sprinkle those things on as the last piece. A couple of other tips that I'm not utilizing necessarily, well, some of these I will, are I've seen people wrap their Lego in saran wrap. If you're doing, like, let's say you're not headed to a show, or you are headed to a show, some people have to ship their stuff, like maybe you have to put it in luggage and fly with it. I've seen people wrap their builds in saran wrap, put those carefully into like a suitcase, and then take that suitcase ideally on carry-on, but sometimes it has to go in luggage. I've also seen people do this if they just have to move from one place to another. Shout out to Mr. Bookieboo, who a couple years ago had to move his whole Lego city across town to another place. And if you're looking for more content on how to move Lego, I think that would be another really great place to check out. He's got a couple of videos if you did back through his catalog there. So yeah, so I hope this helps. I use those 3 big Rubbermaid bins, and then in terms of once I'm there from the van to the show, I try to always use a cart. It can be tempting to just like grab it and go because you're maybe a little anxious or in a hurry, but I find the cart and then just go slowly, like really slowly. You know, if you're going over like cobblestone or have to go over a door jamb, just take your time, go really slowly. It can, again, it's very exciting to like pull in and get the stuff out and start setting it up. It's the day of the show, or you know, day of setup at least, but it's worth it to take those last moments and go really, really slowly so that when you get there, you haven't had things bounce around. This probably goes without saying, but fill your bins all the way up so there's not negative space, so things aren't sliding, even if you have to just put like a pillow or something to fill up the negative space if you don't need it. Any room for even vertical space, if it's not using the whole bin, sometimes I'll lay something very soft across the top, just again to keep the Lego from bouncing around. So I hope you found this video useful. I'm super excited about Brickworld Chicago. Like I said, I've been to many Lego conventions, but I haven't been to Brickworld, so this is gonna be my first trip. I have a ton of exciting content planned for you through this month and through the rest of the summer, so of course stick around. Hope to see you back soon, and hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.